Welcome to the Smart Thinking Podcast. This is my dad, Ted.
Welcome to the Smart Thinking Podcast. I'm your host, Ted Knightsky. Well, this is nuts. This is my 9th season of the Smart Thinking Podcast, and I'm excited to share with you a few things I've learned over the summer and ways that we are going to continue to focus on our own development and growth. For instance, this episode was inspired from some time I had in the mountains this summer, specifically with my new friend, Concho. As we launch into another season of the Smart Thinking Podcast, I want to review how and why we got here. 9 years ago, I was asked to come up to a school and, quote, get them fired up at their opening in-service. I'd put together a keynote to inspire and provide ideas for a school district in Elkhorn, Wisconsin. As a matter of fact, it was the Elkhorn School District. As I was leaving the stage and putting away all of my gear, a young third-year teacher came up to me and told me she thought I should start a podcast. And that nudge led us to today. I thought about that over and over as the weeks went by, and finally, after researching everything I needed to do, working with a tech person from my office, and deciding that I would follow a formula each week, I launched this amazingly engaging podcast. Now, I don't know if you think it's amazingly engaging, but it's engaging for me, and hopefully for you. The process? Each week, I identify a problem, illustrate that problem through a story, and then provide solutions and reflections to support those of us working through life and leadership together. If you are a new listener, get ready, because I follow this each week unless I'm interviewing someone extraordinary. I record in my wife's closet, surrounded by the world's 5th largest collection of Gap denim jackets and jeans, and enjoy splicing this together while picking a Well Penny song each week to accompany the end of the podcast. If you ever have a topic you want me to address, simply email me or find me at our new website, gotoyourstorm.org. And that's where you can get my new book. And you can still get it early released if you want to get the early copies autographed with the stickers for about another week. Okay, enough of that. This episode, I want to focus on starting the year and maintaining a great culture in your life, whether that is in an office, a classroom, a boardroom, or even in your own home. Too often we let others drive the culture of our lives, and we forget that our journey is uniquely our own, and we own the ride and the route of our journey. You see, I was reminded of something this summer when I was in Glacier National Park in Montana that, well, almost got me seriously hurt. The reminder was that the energy I bring to my situation is the energy I will get in return. That was a direct quote from a young woman who would turn out to be a huge inspiration for me on our trip. The inspiration was in the reminder that we are all in charge of our own journey, that we are in control of the overwhelming majority of the time on the ride of life, and we have much more influence than we think when it comes to elevating or sinking other people. People and other humans, well, have something called emotional transfer. And that is when we can demonstrate an impact on others through our emotions, with our responses to any situation, the energy we walk into a room with, and the reactions to joy or threats. As a result, we are literally walking culture creators or killers. Now, before we get into the impact of ourselves on the ride of life, let's remind ourselves of a few things. Number 1, leadership. Each of us is a leader, and that means that any one of us at any moment can lead. And what that means is that we lead other people because we have influence over them just by simply being present. Followership is our ability to be a good human and care for others, to collaborate, to accept responsibility for what is going on, demonstrate resilience, and be empathetic. And we do this by focusing on regular reflection and being a buffalo in mind and body, emotionally challenging our storms and physically going into them as they are occurring. This life we are living is guided by our own principles, and these principles are our own rules of engagement in life. Have you ever thought about the principles you live by? I mean, your rules? Here are a couple of mine to get you sparking and thinking about them. Never pass on the opportunity to help others. Family is first. Stop and listen to the music. Lead with curiosity. Take time to cook. A long hike is better than a long movie. Those are principles that I wrote down years ago that I pretty much follow every single day. And now, as a result of this past summer, I have another one because of a ride I took. And the new principle is enjoy the ride and remember the people around you. This comes from a simple statement made by that young woman I met this summer, which leads me to the story. This summer, we went on our annual summer road trip as a family. My wife, Megan, and I calculated this was our 19th such adventure. And this year, we went to a lot of places with actual buffaloes everywhere. And that wasn't on purpose. But as a result of our family's love of the outdoors in the West, we found them in a lot of places. Like South Dakota, where we hiked the Badlands, and Custer State Park, where we slept in an awesome cabin, and then off to Glacier, Montana. And then we completed our trip in North Dakota at Theodore Roosevelt National Park and the new Roosevelt Presidential Library, which I can assure you, I've got a lot of content that came from this summer's trip. Our family loves great views, learning, and food. We found all of it, but we also found a little adventure. So we decided one day to go for a horseback ride in Glacier National Park. Megan, Grace, and I. Charlie decided he wanted to go for a long hike. He doesn't really like horses, it turns out. But we booked a 3.5-hour trip that was to take us through 3 different forests, a little elevation, and over a creek, which in Wisconsin, a creek is much different than a creek in Glacier in July. In Wisconsin, we would call that a raging river. But there, they call it a creek. Anyway, we got to the corral, and it's Megan, Grace, my 21-year-old daughter, and college senior, who is going to student teach this year in Chicago, and me. They weigh us in and assign us a horse. Megan, my wife, is 4'11" and gets a cute little horse named Andretti and has to get little buddy stirrups. That could be an entirely different podcast about the adventures of being married to a woman who's almost 5 feet tall. My goodness, I lose her everywhere. Grace gets her horse, whose name is Curtis, slightly bigger than Megan's horse because, well, Grace is 3 inches taller than her mom. And me, Mr. 6'1", and my horse, Concho. And he's presented to me, and he's beautiful and big. Now, before I get into this trip, one of the things that you learn as parents over time is that time with your children gets more and more limited if you've done your job, and they become more and more independent. So Megan committed herself to doing more of what they loved, the kids loved, and it paid dividends all summer. This day, however, Megan had said a few times to the woman working in the Swan River Corral that she was a little nervous about horseback riding. This set off a little bit of conversation with all of the other people who were about to take our ride. Weirdly, most of the 12 people on our journey and our trip were teachers. 3 special education teachers on a girls' weekend, a married couple from North Carolina, both who taught Phi Ed, and a history couple teacher. They were my favorite. Anyways, well, when all the horses and we were all put together, we were told that the terrain was slightly dangerous, our phones would be a burden to us, and that we should be prepared to see bears, moose, and potentially, get caught in a thunderstorm. The tenor of most of the people changed after hearing that list. As a matter of fact, as soon as people heard bears, it got their attention. There was a nervous chatter that went about. Of course, I was distracted when this was all being said, and I was mostly distracted because of all the young people working there who I found very fascinating, and I was asking them a million questions about where they were from and how they got the job, and do they like horses, and why are you out here, what do you do? Well, anyways, just before we saddled up for our ride, the corral boss, a young woman with a huge white cowboy hat on, boots, and a plaid shirt, came out and politely shouted out the reminders, and she was like this: "No bear spray on the ride. No phones out when we're near water. No stopping unless it's an emergency. Please don't let the horses graze. And please be aware that within the first half mile, all the horses will have to pee and poop. So don't worry about it when it happens." This actually kind of reminded me of the lecture I used to give my kids before we would leave the house on trips. Anyway, we mount up, and there are a few people who are visibly nervous as they are getting on their horses. Our guide, Alexis, calmly walks over person by person and horse by horse, and starts to pet the horses, and she begins to share something with the nervous riders. She says to the riders, as she calmly and lovingly pets the horses, that as a rider, the horse is going to mirror your attitude, emotions, and energy. If you sit in the saddle on your ride nervous, the horse will be nervous. If you get startled, the horse will get startled. She says to all of us then, here are a few ways to enjoy yourself today. Number 1, remember that horses have done this before. They've all been part of this journey. Number 2, they are huge and strong animals that are also tender and loving. 3, how you treat them is how they'll treat you. 4, the more you positively reinforce them, the faster they'll trust you. 5, be firm from the beginning in your saddle and with your reins, or they'll learn very quickly that you're a pushover. And 6, when we stop, talk to the horse, pet them, and tell them how they're doing. Remember that these horses all have personalities, and they feel your presence and energy. As she was speaking, I got hit with what I call a smart thinking moment. You can find a bunch of them on Instagram or TikTok. Just search CISA 6. The smart thinking moment for me was when I realized that she just laid out a principle to live your life by when working with or living with others. Heck, it was the principles of a well-managed classroom she just shared. I tried to dig into my pocket to get my phone out so that I could take a note on what she had just said when the corral boss gave me a look. She side-eyed me and smiled. I took that for permission, and I fumbled to get my app open and type out what she had just said and what I just shared with you. Concho and I started our ride, and I was behind both Megan and Grace. And just like the boss had said, the horses all started to pee and poop once we got on the trail, and everyone acted surprised. I thought, this is like the beginning of a school year. We know what's coming, we know what's going to happen, and yet we're all stunned at the reality of what's going on around us. Plus, I've also learned over time that most adults assume the other adults are listening, so they don't. And then they act surprised when something happens that we were all told was going to happen. Anyways, I digress. I've ridden horses a few times in my life and knew about being firm. So I was able to keep Concho on the trail, and I amplified my ride by following the principles our guide had given us. I stayed jovial, leaned down often, and scratched Concho's ears and neck, and sure enough, I got to let off the reins a little bit because he never wandered off the trail at all. I kept praising him, and we had a great ride. Grace was in front of me, and she was doing the same thing, and the two teachers from North Carolina were behind me, and this many teachers who are, by nature, rule followers were all having a pretty good ride. And we also shared the same middle school humor, so when the woman behind me suddenly came to a stop on her horse, and her horse took a big breath and then sneezed and farted at the same time, well, we almost all fell off our horses laughing, and the horses even responded by snorting and wagging their tails. Now, there were a few people who stayed a little nervous, and they were slightly afraid to be firm with the horses. I'm not going to name names here, my wife Megan, so that I protect the innocent and myself. But this person was, well, pretty nervous. Yet she's an incredible teacher, has great relationships with her students, is firm, and has loving classroom management style. But you put her in a situation she barely wants to be in, and she's nervous. Well, she's the most authentic person I know, and she's a terrible liar and can't fake it to make it ever. So how's her riding experience going from my perspective behind her? Remember, I'm 6'1". I'm on top of my horse. I can see over everyone. And Andretti, her horse, is in total control. Meg's a little bit afraid to tighten the reins, and her horse is staying in control. Her horse slows down and stops whenever he wants. He ignores commands, and he's a little sassy. Our guide says to Megan, be a little tougher on him. Pull those reins in. Kick him in the side to get him moving. Doesn't hurt him. He knows what it means and what to do. And just as she says this to Megan, Megan's horse starts backing himself off the trail to scratch his butt on a pine tree, and then he backs Megan into the pine tree. Everyone's laughing. I'm about to fall off my horse. Megan's laughing and attempting to firmly take control, but you could tell that her horse sensed she was loving and a little easy when it came to the reins. Clearly, horses feel us when we're on the ride, because her horse was a joker, and he was going to have some fun with this sweet and beautiful little woman, my wife. Megan nervously started to pull on the rein. However, she only pulled on the left rein. So her horse went left, and then Megan was laughing, asking, why are we going left? And Grace, my daughter, is eye-rolling as the guide says, that's because you're pulling on the left rein. I swear to goodness, I think I saw Megan's horse wink at Gracie's horse, Curtis. Like, I'm going to have some fun with this lady today. Megan and everyone eventually got into a groove. I kept loving on Concho and laughing with him as Megan's horse, Andretti, goofed around. My ride was great, and so was everyone else's, who remembered that this is a relationship. And while being short and new, it was symbiotic and an emotionally connected ride. As we returned to the corral, our guide asked us, do you want to get a picture with your horses and family? Well, we were like, of course. So she asked us to line up our horses. Grace and I pulled up alongside each other, maintaining control and being firm and loving. But in the meantime, there was Andretti, with Megan riding him. Realizing he had one more chance to mess with his new friend, my wife, he started walking backwards, sideways, and not doing anything he was supposed to do. Megan was on the reins. She was kicking him. He wouldn't do anything. Then the corral boss started walking at the horse with a firm and determined look. And Andretti, that horse, boy, he straightened up like a class clown when the principal walks into the room. And we took a great photo. What's the lesson here? And what's the principle? In schools, we are always talking about learning, management, and expectations. Heck, my friend Carl and I were talking the other day, and he and I realized that there's a guiding idea that trumps all of the others, and it's two things that we had just happened upon that we both agreed with that we had been saying for years. What is that thing that trumps everything else? Relationships. However, the question becomes, what is our role and responsibility when it comes to the relationships, when we are managing a classroom, working with others, collaborating? Well, first, we should make no assumption that anyone else is in control of our ride, but us. Second, no matter what is happening around us, we are responsible for our ride and the relationships. No one else is. There's three things each of us own: our mindset, our happiness, and our engagement. And through those three things, we also are the drivers of all the relationships and interactions around us. So here's my challenge. Own your ride. Buffalo leadership is about going into the storms in your life and owning them. Well, we are also in charge of all the other days, and frankly, we're also in charge of our own storm prevention. Wait, I want to share something else with you that I just remembered. After we left the corral and ate lunch at the Sunrise Cafe and went for a hike, we returned to our house in Corem, and I went out to the patio with my laptop and researched what the guide had said to us about horses and their ability to feel us. And here's the notes I took. Research has actually found that there is a physiological body of evidence that there is cardiovascular synchronization between humans and horses. The primary evidence for this is when riders and horses do something called emotional transfer, which comes from physiological monitoring that they have done prior to this, specifically through heart rate and heart rate variability. Studies show, and this blew my mind, studies show that horses and riders experience synchronicity in their hearts and their nervous systems when the riders are stressed or calm. That's crazy to me. But the reason here is even more wild. Because of the emotional transfer, it comes from a very key evolutionary point with horses. Because horses are prey animals, evolved with exceptionally sensitive perceptual systems, which allows them to decode human emotional states through multiple sensory channels simultaneously while we are together. They can literally feel how we feel. And the anxiety will cause muscular tension and tightening in the thighs and alter the contact with the reins of the horse. Horses process these little tiny physical changes because of human movements and human reactions. And as a result, they act like their rider. Well, this blew me away, and then it got me thinking about human-to-human emotional transfer. Unlike many of you, I was a classroom teacher, and I learned over time that my presence determined the altitude as well as their attitude when I was in front of that classroom, then as a principal, the superintendent, and today as a leader. All of the things I learned is that my energy was mirrored, and if I let the least common denominator in that room ruin my day, and I then acted upon that and had a bad mood or stayed in a bad mood or propelled my bad mood, it ruined a lot of other people's days. After I researched all this and had this little epiphany, I wrote this down. I won my ride today. And that's what I want for you. I want you each day, as my friend Keith Graveldinger always says, to win the day, but I want you to win your ride. You see, we are all leaders, and my challenge for you this year is to own your ride each and every day. If you're a classroom teacher, remember that what you say, how you feel, how tight or loose the reins are, is going to matter a ton in that classroom. Principals, same thing for you, for your entire staff and the culture. How you walk around, your mindset, your attitude, and how nervously you're holding those reins. Leaders of all levels. I don't care if you work in the office or you're a superintendent, a district leader, a chief, a doctor, a lawyer, a business person, sitting at home. I don't care who you are. You own your ride. And the lessons from Concho, my horse, were simple. How I feel is how you feel. How I act is how you act. What I reinforce, you'll do more of. Firm and loving can coexist when I have the reins, as my friend Urs Koning says. So what is the ride principle? Well, you know me. I got to make it spell something so that you can remember it. And the ride principle is simple. R is resilient. I is interdependent. D is determination. And E is enthusiastic. Because that's what you want to do when you're on a ride of life. You want to be resilient, interdependent with other people, determined to get through whatever you're facing or get to where you want to go with enthusiasm and energy. Now, let me define it for you, because resilient, well, that's one of my favorite words. And I define it as an unwavering commitment to never quit on yourself. When you do this for yourself, the room, the culture, your worlds, they'll all see that and they'll mirror it. This year, commit yourself to never quitting on yourself or others. Take the reins and tighten them when you need to help others be their best. And you do that by being honest, being candid, and holding people accountable, while at the same time being resilient for others by loosening the reins and trusting that they'll get through it. With kids, this tight and loose structure is always fueled by one key behavior: positive reinforcement. I is interdependent. Interdependence is simply the recognition that I need you as much as you need me, that the two of us, or the group of us, is stronger, smarter, and more successful together. Independent is not what we need on our ride this year. That'll lead us to great levels of worry and anxiety. Each of us on our ride needs to recognize that this year will be amazing if we are working in synchronicity and symbiotically. Whew, big words. This takes work, and again, just like the horses, needs reinforcement and rein work. People need processes and rules, and it is our job to guide others to success in the interdependent relationships by being firm, caring, and positively reinforcing what we want more of and when we see it. D is determination. Determination is your commitment to get through it all with and for others. A determined rider is committing themselves to the success and safety of those they are on the journey with. Success as defined by the individual, and of course, reinforcing the behaviors that get them there. The more we reinforce them with frequency, the more success we'll find. But also a keen focus on the safeties of the ride. Psychological safety. Are you and others safe to be around? Physical safety. Do I have what I need to feel safe? And group safety. Does the group feel comfortable taking risks and feel like you are protecting them while at the same time being able to operate authentically? And you know how we get there, friends? Positive reinforcement. Which takes us to E, my favorite, enthusiasm. The horse will mirror your emotions. Enthusiasm isn't always fun and exciting party vibes. It's commitment, it's love, it's ownership, it's follow-through. It's an unwavering desire to find success within those around you. It's also brevity, humor, and kindness and candor. It's putting energy where and for whom it is needed at all times and recognizing when you can't bring it, that someone else must. But it's also seeing it and reinforcing it in others. You picking up on the theme? Ride with reinforcement. Finally, my challenge for you. Can you own your ride this year so that others benefit? Can you set up predetermined times so that you can build up and store the energy you need for the long ride of a school year? And what I mean by that is, do you take clarity breaks? Do you position yourself where you just step away once in a while and re-energize and recharge yourselves? Because it's important to do that. And the last question is, can you build a symbiotic relationship or relationships with those you serve so that they feel comfort and confidence in your presence? The ride principle is simple and beautiful. Be resilient for yourself and others while recognizing that the fuel of the journey is found in the interdependence and driven by your determination and amplified by your enthusiasm. Remember this, some days you're the rider and some days you're the horse. The horses all knew the rules and expectations, but each rider was unique, as is every culture. The horse is actually in charge and feeds off of three things: the rider's mindset, what the rider reinforces, and what the rider reins in or loosens up. Everyone is watching and learning from the rider, yet the horse always knows, I'm really in charge. Are you picking up on these metaphors I'm throwing your way? The horse is the staff. The leader is the rider. The horse will take us where we need to go if we trust them, if we are calm with them, if we reinforce them, if we love them. And the horse will keep us safe and drive us to the destination, the goals, and the outcomes that we expect. Which is the last smart thinking for you. How will you set the tone this year so that you are successful in taking someone for a ride or guiding a group? I think the answer is simple. You're going to practice the ride principle in your days, and the most important thing is you're going to enjoy your journey. So let's do some smart thinking. Describe where you can implement the ride principle. List the trails you will ride on this school year or this work year and reflect how you can practice resilience, recognize interdependence, be determined, and maintain enthusiasm. And lastly, list others who would benefit from this principle. That's it. That's the Smart Thinking Podcast, Episode 1, Season 9, 380 some episodes in motion. Whew. I'm going to do something different this year and new in my closing, and I'm going to ask you to do something for me. I'm going to challenge you to share these episodes with specific people who need to hear these pieces. So please share this one with your principal, with your new teachers, with your teacher colleagues, with your bosses, your superintendents, your leaders, and those who are the riders and the horses. Everyone. Also, I say this one to drive my kids nuts. Please slam that like button and leave a comment on your social media platform or podcast platform that you are listening on. And as always, thank you for listening to the Smart Thinking Podcast each week or this week, and know that I'm grateful for it. It's, again, a very empowering opportunity for me each week to share my ideas with you through stories and processes. And finally, thank you to the Well Pennies and Golden Bear Studios in Des Moines, Iowa for always giving me permission to use all this great music. Okay, last thought. When we were in the corral loading up and I was hopping up on Concho, the corral boss came around and said, "Hey, there's a few things that you will not do." She was so firm and so strong as a young person working in this corral. First thing she said was, and she pointed at us, "You will not bring bear spray on the trip. If you have bear spray on you, you will not use bear spray, because what you think might protect you is going to hurt an awful lot of other people. Number 2, if you do see a bear, we're going to get really, really loud. Number 3, if you see a bear, we are not going to panic. When you're on a ride today, this week, this semester, this year, remember that your emotional transfer is real. When you panic and bust out the bear spray, when you get really loud and when you get really nervous and you start sharing all of your fears with everyone, those little ponies or wise and old horses are going to do as you do, or they're going to run away from you. So using extreme emotional responses or bear spray will only harm everyone. I mean, listen to the rules of riding again. Number 1, remember that the horses have done this before. Number 2, they are huge and strong animals that are also tender and loving. How you treat them is how they'll treat you. The more you positively reinforce them, the faster they'll trust you. Be firm from the beginning in your saddle and with the reins, or they'll learn very quickly that you're a pushover. And when we stop, talk to the horse, pet them, tell them how they're doing, and positively reinforce everything that's going on around you. So here's the deal. Do not underestimate yourself in any situation, whether you're leading others or yourself. A leader is anyone who has influence over another person, and sometimes we need to gallop into the situations that are put in front of us. I recognize that I normally talk about being a buffalo, but I have yet to ride one. And after seeing them this summer up close and frighteningly personally close, I don't think I ever will ride a buffalo. But the challenge to you is to recognize that you are a difference maker. That your relationships with others is a reflection of your efforts, your attitude, and your energy. So this year, in your room, your office, your world, go next level and have the best ride of your life. Because after all, you are in control.